evening. Good evening. Today's March 1st. I would like to call the Reading Board of Select Board to order. Okay. Tonight, for everyone at home, I'll give you a quick overview of the meeting. You can find our packet online at the town website by clicking the date of the meeting. Tonight's meeting is brought to you by RCTV, and Rob is our videographer. And you can also view it on the RCTV YouTube channel. So tonight we'll start with Select Board Liaison and a Town Manager report. We will open the floor to any public comment at 7:15. We have consent agenda consisting of 3 items. Vote to dissolve the ad hoc Town Manager Screening Committee, approve Deborah Drive driveway request, vote to extend sunset date for Parking Advisory and Recommendations Committee to April 30th. Following that, we will have a presentation on water and sewer capital projects by a member of staff. And then we will approve Longhorn change of officer. All the pertinent information was included in the select board packet. We will discuss / approve temporary lighting at Coolidge. We will vote to close the town warrant for annual town meeting. At 8:30, we will discuss Town Charter Section 5.1, Town Manager Termination Pay. At 8:45, we will discuss future agenda items. And following that, we will approve meeting minutes for February 1st, 2022 and February 15th, 2022. And at 9 o'clock, we will adjourn to executive session. And I don't have the motion in front of me, but I'm gonna give you a preview that we probably won't be returning to public session. Thank you, very good. Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, so who would like to start with SB Liaison Reports? Mark?
So just one quick report, the recalc committee has been meeting pretty much at every 2-week cadence, making progress. Folks are starting to realize how big a task this really is to try to understand all the information about a senior / community center. And I think we'd like to come to the board to present a little bit about kind of where we are in the process we're going to follow at our next meeting at the end of March, with a request, this is a first, to do it late in the meeting, not early.
Okay.
The chair
Careful
has
what you wish for.
Yeah, so at 9 o'clock, not 11.
10:45 it is.
But I think the committee is moving ahead. We're now full because the board approved our latest member. So we have a full committee, everyone is participating. We also are having some outside people join the meetings as well, which has been great. The chair of the Council on Aging has been joining and a few others. So it's moving, but it's a big task, and we'll have a little bit of an update for the 22nd?
22nd, I believe.
22nd, yes. That's it.
Very good. Does
I'm good.
okay, you good? Chris?
Thanks, Sharon. So yeah, the Reading School Committee ended up meeting, and as everyone knows, they ended up rescinding the mask mandate. Still, recommended for kids to continue wearing them, students, staff, etc. The other thing was the Vietnam Veteran Memorial by Kevin Bowmiller was on the agenda that they want to put out in front of the high school. So they showed the graphic of what it's going to look like. The granite's going to end up coming from Pennsylvania. It's black. Looks pretty amazing. But the other thing is that they were going to be seeing about setting up a GoFundMe to see about paying for it. I think it was $8,000 to $10,000 is what Kevin had mentioned. He also mentioned that they have the money in the budget, but at the same time that was just depleted from other projects that they could be spending it on elsewhere. So perhaps as we get closer to the event or whenever the GoFundMe thing comes out, we can somehow do something to highlight that for them. And then the highlight for Fidel and I of the night was, I don't even know what I'm talking about now, the 6th grade students that came in from Coolidge and did their newly adopted illustrative math. It was a pretty unique exercise with everybody there. Kat, Peter, and Jason with their teacher Denise. It was pretty incredible watching what they were able to present, and more importantly, just seeing sixth graders that are able to formulate and speak better than I am, even right now, was just incredible to see that a younger generation is doing better than even I could, and they have a ways to go. So that's what I got.
Very good.
I understand from Amy Lannon that the new Director of Equity and Social Justice began today at the library, Dr. Sudeshna Chatterjee. So I hope we might invite her to present at our next meeting or introduce herself.
Great.
Marvelous. Quick updates. The community garden residents who've been working with staff to get that going. There was some back and forth about the funds. The earmarked funds were from DESE, which is an educational fund. So school committee offered to take care of it, but Fidel took a look at the situation and, correct me if I'm wrong, decided that it was not necessary for the school committee to approve that. So I don't believe there's any other approvals they need to seek. They can just get going with the community garden.
That's right, that's
So
correct.
that's really excited.
That's really exciting.
It's exciting. Congratulations, all those residents and staff for all of that work. That's gonna be exciting. And one more thing. Oh, we got an update today, which being hypersensitive to open meeting law violations, I only sent to one person, Chris, today, because he is also an RMD liaison, but we all need to take a look at it. There are updates to the stretch code being discussed. There are hearings available for the public. There's a great presentation telling you where they're gonna go, and the hearings are definitely the opportunity for the public to reach out and give feedback. So we'll make sure that it goes to the rest of the board, not for deliberation. So you can see that. And I think that's all I have.
Awesome, well, thank you for having me. It's my first meeting without Bob, and I'll just start by saying, you know, that the last 2 weeks, and really the last 6 weeks have been great with just learning from Bob. He was an incredibly generous man. He is an incredibly generous man. I mean, he welcomed me in. He scheduled a town manager breakfast, for example, at Christopher, where I met a bunch of my peers, which is going to be helpful in the future. He was gracious enough to hand us essentially a completed budget for FY23 that is positive and is balanced, and we'll review later on in the meeting. So just thank you, Bob. I'm sure he's watching. So I just wanted to say,
I'm not
you know,
so sure.
that well, yeah. I just wanted to say, you know, the work that he put in is obvious. He was very he is well respected, and we had a warm goodbye for him here in the building, and I'm starting to plan with the help of the select board chair a community-wide goodbye either in April or in May. So I'm working on that.
Okay.
Just getting down to business. So the most exciting news is that our town moderator has confirmed that town meeting is going to be in person. That's incredibly exciting. We feel that it's an opportunity to get back to normal. Just on a side note, Susan from the school department is speaking with the director of the PAC to get a chorus and a band to do a welcome and an introduction and have you know the national anthem and just make it a fun first few minutes of town meeting, just because it should be celebrated that after 2 years of a global pandemic, hopefully we're able to return back to some semblance of normal. So the town meeting is going to be in person at the packet at the high school, and later on in the agenda we'll review and hopefully approve the warrant. As I mentioned, the fiscal year 23 budget has been submitted to FinCom. It is balanced. It's a strong budget. I think we all got a lot of our priorities, not all of the requests, but a lot of our priorities, and it's really a good bouncing point, for the future. So I'm really excited about that. I know that in the previous meetings, there was a lot of questions around water and sewer and infrastructure and capital planning. So Ryan Percival, who is our town engineer, and is really well respected in the region. I mean, he's been here for 17 years, and he's seen, just about everything in the town. So he'll share an overview of the water and sewer projects that are coming up in the next few years, and finally, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's met with me and has either had coffee or had lunch with me. I think that what I've told everyone is that I want to be visible and accessible. So if you're interested in having a question or in having coffee or lunch, I'm always available to all residents. Thank you.
Now, specifically on March 16th from 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m., Mr. Maltese will be at Burbank YMCA lobby and ready to have coffee with anybody who's available. So thank you for doing that. I think that's a great opportunity. All right.
And I brought a gift for town staff, jumping off of Carlo's comment from way back when about not needing Red Bull.
Perfect.
You can pass this out because, like I said, judging by all the emails that you've already sent and you seem to be everywhere in town, everyone's going to need it. Not us. Not me.
Okay, moving on to public comment. Do we have any folks on Zoom or in the room that would like to speak for up to 2 minutes this evening on any topic? Okay, none appearing. All right, moving on, our consent agenda. Let's see, so, Ann, I don't know if you want to comment on the first item. It's pretty straightforward.
Certainly. I think we're in a pretty good position now to dissolve the ad hoc town manager screening committee where Fidel is fully onboarded and present with us. I think the time has come.
Okay, very good. There were a number of letters and diagrams, engineering diagrams in the Denver driveway request. Are there any select board questions on this item?
If you don't mind,
No.
I would request for our town engineer to just walk us through it, and yeah. Go ahead, Ryan, thank you.
Thank you, Fidel. Am I all set to share, Jackie? Thank you. Bear with me 1 second. I'll bring up the plan for everyone. Can everyone see that?
Sort of.
Good thing it was in the packet.
It's a little small.
I will zoom in, I promise. I just wanted everyone to see that it was a complete plan. This is the most up-to-date recent plan, and I'll get down to the more important parts down here. As you know from the memo, this was presented in some fashion prior to this finalized plan to engineering for a secondary driveway. Per the select board policies, it did not meet the requirements for a second driveway with the separation between the two driveways needing to be 125 feet. That was subsequently denied by engineering on January 11th. It was then requested upon the denial that this be brought up by the select board for a waiver from the select board policies, specifically in regards to the separation distance in the driveways. The purpose from the resident for the additional driveway is to serve as accessible ADA access to the addition on the left-hand side of the house, which to my knowledge is being built to accommodate aging parents. There was concerns about drainage during this process, not only through my division, but through conservation. And so as you can see, there were some drip trenches that were installed here, and as well as a rain garden here to capture the entirety of the driveway. And that was designed to meet a capacity of 100-year storm. So this was then brought to PTTF as basically a review prior to the select board seeing this, and there wasn't found to be any reason for concern for the second driveway regarding public safety or for traffic. And so that's what you have in front of you, and you'd be voting on whether or not you would allow a secondary driveway in this fashion that's proposed.
Thank you.
Ryan, when you spoke of select board policies, did you mean the zoning bylaws?
No, specifically the select board policy is under section 4 for DPW, which
Okay,
is specific to the driveway rules and regulations.
okay,
And that is as your agent to the road commissioners, which you are, I administer those regulations through our division. And
okay,
so I can only approve what's in those regulations.
right, okay.
Okay, other questions or comments, Mark?
Ryan, can you talk a little bit about how much of a waiver this would be? I understand it's a waiver or not a waiver, but how different is this from our policy?
So in general, two driveways are not allowed on one lot. However, in the past, there have been two driveways that have been allowed in instances throughout town. I think your group has allowed one recently on Lawrence. I don't know if the entirety of the select board was there at that time. So this would waive one crucial regulation in particular, and that's the 125 feet. If you can follow my hand, the 125 feet is basically here. And right now, as you can see, they're proposing 43 feet. Now, I will point out that the applicant has agreed to mitigate drainage, which they did not have to, on the site. So that is one means of mitigation for the driveway. Now, there could be other requests from the select board in approving the waiver, but that's probably the biggest one because that was one of the bigger concerns from the neighbors. There was also an email that was sent earlier, not earlier, but later this evening that I had
Yes.
just seen from one of the next door neighbors that
Yes,
was in opposition to the driveway and that it did not fit the single family residential feel of Deborah Drive, and that they felt as though that access could be granted some other way. I hope that answered your question.
Yep, thanks, Ryan.
Okay.
Other comments from the board? Chris?
Thanks, Karen. So Ryan, obviously you're not conservation, but they, from what I read and whatnot, they fully signed off on this already. And what's proposed on here is through engineering or through them, or?
So what you're seeing here is exactly what the conservation has seen as well. Conservation, to my understanding, has approved this conditional upon engineering's approval of the stormwater BMP, which is this bioretention area. We've reviewed that and sent a memo to conservation. In our review, we have acknowledged that this has been designed to meet a 100-year storm, so it is sufficient.
Okay.
Ryan, I also saw, the email that came in, late breaking email at 6:09. And one of the arguments was that there are other ways to achieve accessibility and accessible parking. I don't know if that's something that was looked at or evaluated, or if the particular needs of this family with respect to accessibility. I know that had been mentioned. Could you provide any insight there?
Not particular to this property.
Okay.
I mean, what we saw presented in front of us were these two driveways. As you can see, there's a proposed retaining wall here. There's always an option of paving more in front of the and off of this driveway and in front of the front yard to gain access, I suppose. I'm not necessarily sure if that makes any difference as far as runoff or impervious area is concerned, but it's certainly a different way of access. My understanding, at least from the petition that came in from the applicant, was that this was going to be used primarily for access for a disabled parent or for ADA accessibility. I don't know what the internal structure of the home is, if that can happen through the main level, but I do know that this has been proposed as a accessory apartment with its own entrance.
Thank you.
That was actually my question. So it's an accessory apartment which which engineering and planning put into place a number of years ago to facilitate multi-generational living and these kinds of situations.
Right, and there was reference to in the latest email that I'm not sure if everyone had seen, but I do want to just bring up from the one of the neighbors that they make mention of a zoning bylaw. This is completely separate from that.
Okay.
The board is only really deciding on whether or not they want additional access, with that, without meeting that requirement of that separation. But there is a zoning requirement as well that touches upon that accessory apartment.
Question, do we know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, good.
I was gonna say, do we know, with that proposed accessory apartment, does that comply with zoning? Has that plan been approved already?
I can't speak to that. I don't know if it has been. I know it is currently, or it could possibly still be in front of the ZBA. They also want to make sure that these driveways are approved as well. So I know that may be a condition of theirs.
You know, that's a good point. I'm not sure the select board should be approving driveways if the rest of the addition hasn't been approved. So that's fair. That's a fair question. Thank you. Carla?
Thanks. Ryan, I'm assuming this is a ground level unit, 1 story, so no ramps. It's just gonna be, accessibility is gonna be, flush.
That's my understanding. I have not seen a elevation plan of this. I don't think they've gotten that far yet. They're on the plot plan and they show this walkway here. I'm assuming the entryway is here. It's flush. That's what I've been told. And I think that's the intent of that structure being the addition.
Okay, but to Karen's point, I think, would we be the last stop in this process? So if approving this, then it goes to zoning, and then it doesn't come back to us, I'm guessing, or should we be last? I don't know
So that's always a good question, not particular to this project, but that does come up when we have projects that have to go in front of multiple boards. Who's the first board that has to get it, and who should be the last board to see it? I think that's up to you to decide whether or not you want to wait. I know ZBA can probably do a conditional approval. They do not approve driveway because you're the road commissioners. They don't have the authority to approve the entry, but they can base their approval based on their jurisdiction. Now, again, this went in front of conservation as well, so they approved their piece. So that always comes up with a lot of projects. So I guess it's whatever you're comfortable with.
I'm sure guidance by us or decision by us would help a little bit or not. I don't know. But,
Yeah, it may make ZBA's decision easier. I know they were asking about this as well as conservation approval.
Could we make ours conditional? Again, just conditional that this addition is approved, then we're fine with it. Is that an option for us? Any reason we couldn't do that, Ryan?
I don't see a reason why you can't do that.
I think
It's your vote, so, obviously if the ZBA does not approve the accessory apartment, then this driveway should not exist. So, there have been conditions in the past based on certain driveways for different reasons, and there's been conditions on those, so,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are you the petitioner? Okay, sure, come on up, thank you.
So, Patrick Silva, 34 New River Drive. My father is also now technically a part owner of the home, sold him a portion. And I can answer every one of those questions you just had.
That's
So I guess we'll
so
start from the
helpful.
beginning. We've already been approved by the ZBA.
Oh, okay.
Great. So 2 weeks ago, we were approved by the ZBA with 2 conditions. One, that we were approved by Conservation, and 2, that you approved the driveway.
Okay.
Last week, we met with Conservation, and they approved with the condition that you approved the driveway.
Okay,
So
good.
now we are here.
We're all on the same team.
We did set it up in that manner so that it would go
Okay.
Yeah.
ZBA, which we felt would be an approval anyways, because there wasn't a lot for them to approve other than what we'd already worked with the building department with. Last week with Conservation, which we've done an extensive amount of work with. As Ryan mentioned, we don't have to do drainage per laws, but we would never do that as neighbors. We wouldn't dump water into, especially back into wetlands. So we're doing something that I've never heard of before, a bioretention cell, and so I'm figuring it all out as I go, but apparently it's the right way to filter water back into the wetlands, so there's that. The accessory apartment is for my mom and dad. My dad is aging, but he's doing pretty great. My mom, on the other hand, needs a wheelchair for access. So that's exactly what the driveway is for. I don't want to put another driveway in my yard. It's not my ideal situation, but it's what we have to do to make it work. That's what that pathway is for. We actually do have all the construction plans. I didn't know that that's something you all would want to see. We do have them though, and that is a little portico and then a door to go into the accessory apartment there. There is access from the accessory apartment into the existing basement, but to my neighbor's concern, that would require us to bring my mom in through a garage, which is unfinished, garage, over a threshold that is really not conducive for wheelchair access, through a finished basement, because we're a split level and I have 2 little kids, so it's toys and couches and TVs that we would have to now make 36 inches of clearing for any time, all the way through there and then into the accessory apartment to just get my mom in and out regularly and then in and out in case of an emergency as well. So that's why we made the decision to pave part of the grass that I don't want to pave and make it easier for mom and dad to get in and out. We did go with the smallest driveway possible. It's only 12 feet wide. It's the smallest single car driveway you can do. We did a straight shot, straight down. We have drainage at the bottom of it, all the way through that retention cell and out back into those squiggles or the tree line, out into what would be the wetlands out in the back there. We're getting rid of my kid's play set back there. We're getting rid of the sheds. We've complied with everything with conservation. We're letting a peninsula, they're calling it, out in the back there grow back in. That was no fault of our own, but we're just trying to be as flexible as we possibly can with all the different committees.
Yep.
So we're losing a good portion of our yard because of it, but it's what we have to do because mom and dad need a place to stay. So I think that was all the questions that he.
Very helpful, thank you.
And I don't see a sidewalk, it's just a curb, you have to do a curb cut?
So there is a sidewalk.
Oh, there is a sidewalk.
I guess where that darker
with the
black
dotted
line would
line
be,
is?
yeah,
Okay.
my driveway crosses over the sidewalk right now. And but there's no curb, it's just a tree lawn and asphalt sidewalk. I think that was it.
Okay. Yep, no further questions?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was helpful. Okay, are we ready for the next item? Just to go over that, let's see. Chris, you told us that you were coming to us with an extension and here it is. Is this good? Is this what you guys need?
That's all we need.
Okay.
So we were at April 1st, is that right?
I believe so, yes. It's
End
like
of
I said,
March,
it's
I
like,
think,
it's just like 2 meetings left. It's,
Okay.
and
think
one of
that'll
them will come back here to update the select board again.
Do you want it a little further out, just for buffer? I feel like I'm having deja vu. I think we had this conversation
think we
last
had it
time we
before.
extended.
I think we're at the end. It's as you can tell from the emails that came in, the only real thing to hash out is the whole 2-hour-ish scenario. But other than that, I mean, we're right at the end. So I don't anticipate anything else going beyond this. It's like I said, like 2 more meetings. So I think we'll be good.
further questions? I think we're ready for a motion.
So I actually have separate motions, is that okay?
Not really, it's supposed to be a consent agenda.
Alright, so I'll tell you
We
what,
can
I'm
just,
gonna
oh, we
do
can
it on the
just do what we
fly.
can do.
Move to accept the consent agenda as proposed.
Second. Very good on the fly, like that. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, thank you, 5-0. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks for
Joy,
coming
good
in.
luck.
Made a big
Yeah,
difference.
very helpful.
No more snowstorms. Okay, and Ryan, you're up, I guess.
Just gonna share my screen one more time. Can you all see it on the screen, or is it not coming up?
Not yet.
Not coming up.
Oh. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Okay, excellent, good. Because I have maps and plans, just two, they don't do really well on slides, so I'm just gonna use the memo that I had sent you. I just wanted to really start on this section here, because this is probably the most important that you're gonna wanna look at. Fidel had asked me to present an update on the projects that you've all seen and approved, and town meetings approved, and give a status update and basically a cost update and just where we've been, where we are, and moving forward, maybe some of the things that we'll be seeing and doing. So Sturgis Sewer Pump Station, back in, these all generate from our capital, our water capital sewer plans that we generate. In 2010, we had a consultant, CDM Smith, assess all of our 12 sewer stations. Since that time, we've replaced 3, 2 that were in really bad shape. And then these, Charles Street and Sturgis are the 2 biggest ones that were in failing condition. So this is the 4th one that we're gonna be doing before we take a pause and then reevaluate the sewer stations again and see if that prioritization has changed. And so that right now that was awarded in October of 2021. I will note, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, there's some delays associated with this project, but it's important to note why we have those delays, and I'll do that at the end. Moving on, we have, as part of the downtown, we looked at whether or not we had enough capacity in the economic development area, because we have seen all these basically mixed-use buildings come in. And so we reran the model for both the water and the sewer. The water, we were looking at whether or not we had enough water capacity as far as flow, pressures, fire flows. We generally had enough capacity for domestic use, but we lacked in some fire flows. And with some of these larger buildings, that's very important. So we wanted to make sure that we had substantial amount of flow in the downtown area. And that really stemmed from there, really a core group of projects that we needed to really focus in on sooner than later, specifically because we're also looking at redoing the Haven streetscape as part of that economic development. That project came in at 4.3 million, or valued at that. Part of that, I should say, is being funded by through the MWRA's program for local water assistance program, the LWSAP they call it, for a no interest loan, and that's 1.5 million coming from there. So that's good. That helps defer the cost over 20 years with no interest. We try to utilize that as much as we can as possible. The downtown sewer main improvements, again, those stem from another model back in 2019, same as the water model from another consultant, specifically looking at whether or not we had enough capacity in the downtown area. We did have enough capacity. We lacked capacity during high infiltration and inflow times. That's during high rain events. And older systems can have an effect where they have open joints and we're getting a lot of rain infiltration, or we're getting inflow being pumped in or coming from sump pumps or things of that nature. So what stemmed from there was a few projects that was valued at $1 million. And you'll see when we go through the map, I'll point those out and explain to you what those are. The Zebo Circle was one of those projects that came up during the modeling of the water system. Again, we had very low pressures in the Zebo Circle area, but in the surrounding neighborhoods as well. They were struggling with low flows and low pressures for years and years since this was developed. And it also had low fire flows. And I will mention that development does not have any sprinklers. So meeting fire flows on the hydrants is very important. I'm not sure if I really need to explain the whole water tank. I think everyone is well versed on that, but I will just give a quick update and let everyone know construction is underway. Fence is up. The neighbors have been great dealing with the wind breaking down the wind fence and let me know when that needs to be replaced. And I was out there today and noticed that it was down again, so I'll take care of that. But the soil's been removed, and when we pre-characterized that soil for disposal at one of the two facilities, we found that there was arsenic, so we're dealing with the arsenic. We're still well within our contingency of that cost, and we hope to stay that way. We still are on target to meet that operational, where the tank will be operational in April 2023. So hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll start seeing that temporary cell tower go up, and we'll start seeing everyone migrate over, and then it's my pleasure, hopefully see that existing tanks start to be demoed. That'll be a really big milestone, I think, for everyone. Emerson water main and Walkersbrook Drive are what I like to call two projects that are not planned for that are really needed. They're these projects that we deal with occasionally where we have failing mains that are not on the capital program because we don't know that they're failing. One in particular, Emerson, over the last few years, for whatever reason, we've been seeing some discoloration. Water quality is fine, the aesthetics are not. And so we have a very thorough unidirectional flushing program that we've been trying to utilize out in that area. That has calmed it down a little bit, but not really have solved the problem. So that's why that Emerson is on the docket to be replaced. Walkersbrook Drive, you all know that we had that catastrophic failure of that main late fall. We had to go to and do an emergency replacement on that and get that approved by the state to do that within a week, and that was done in a portion. We're now seeing all other portions of this main starting to fail as well. What we did find on that main was that for whatever reason, the makeup of that cast iron main, which is unlined, and the soil conditions that are out there are very corrosive. So they're corroding the pipe from the outside in and essentially making this pipe very, very brittle. And we found that during the replacement of the last section. So that's pretty critical for us to replace. The last two on here are what I like to call programs, a lead removal program. This is probably about a few years in the making. As you know, we went through all the schools and assessed the schools. This is part of that program, but this is in particular to service laterals and to service mains throughout town. Staff went through and did a full audit of all of our active dead files and any other files that we could find on the 8,000 homes for water services. From there, we turned it over to a consultant to generate a report, which I hope that we'll be able to meet with the select board and present that at some point. That report was finalized in April of 2021. We have a lot to do in this program, so it's going to be a multi-year program. This is at $1.5 million, and this will be funded by a no-interest loan from the MWRA as well for their lead program, and that would be spread out over a term, 20-year term. Again, the sewer I&I, that's inflow and infiltration. This goes hand in hand with the sewer improvements up in that area as well. This is something that we've been doing at least maybe close to 2 decades, at least maybe 17 years since I've been here. And this is a great program. The MWA puts this out. This is a 75-25 grant loan, so it's 75% grant, 25% loan. Again, that loan piece is a no interest loan, so it almost becomes, at $1 million, it almost becomes free money. So we go out through town and try to eliminate all these I&I sources to help increase our capacity and also reduce the amount of effluent that we're sending out to the MWA be treated, which would be clean. So that's totaled up to a shocking 19 million, and these are multi-year projects, but these are sort of in the barrel. They're ready to go. As you can see, we already have some that have been awarded, some awaiting bids very shortly, some opening this Thursday. And so that's where we're at with those projects. I can pause here if you have any questions, or I can just go down to the map and sort of land there and everyone can take a look at that.
I do have a question. So which one of those, can we go find more grant money for any of those that haven't been awarded? Is the key word awarded? As long as it hasn't been awarded, go ahead.
Not necessarily. That's a good question, Karen. So, you know, I have spoken with our consultants on at least the water main downtown improvements because there's an economic piece to that. There may be some potential there for mass works, so they're looking into that. That might offset that. We try to utilize as much as, because we're an MWA community, we take full advantage of all of their loan grants, no interest loans. The no interest loans are a very good source of funding because they can be spread out with no interest. So that's huge. The other piece of this is all these projects, to my understanding, are also available for ARPA. That can be confirmed with Sharon, I'm sure, at any point if you have any questions on that. And we're always looking to offset these costs. We're always looking for grant opportunities, not just in water and sewer, but in other areas as well. We partake in the Chapter 90 program. We just sent another application in for the Small Bridge program, which is another grant for $500,000 for another bridge in the Trent Road area. So we're always chasing down these opportunities as much as we can, try to offset these costs. So that was a great question.
So the opening session to the MMA annual conference featured Senators Markey and Senator Warren telling us there's lots of water and sewer infrastructure money available at the state. So is that not accurate? Because I didn't hear that mentioned. And loans are great. If there are no grant sources, 0% loans are awesome. But it was communicated to many of us that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to go get some money from the federal government to do this, or maybe projects that didn't even fit on this page, so.
Yeah, so
How do we get
I mean,
started?
with Ryan, I mean, and what we want to show you is the queue, right? I mean, what these programs are looking for is for things that are kind of shovel ready, right? So the one thing that we're talking about is tied to for example the downtown roadway portion, right? So the water and sewer is in queue, but the roadway portion is going to be $7 million, right? So if we do the water and sewer portion, the streetscape, right? So the sidewalks, the roadway, you know, the traffic signals, all of that stuff is going to be in queue and shovel ready for those kind of projects. So Ryan is talking with the consultants to start putting those in the queue. Nothing has been announced yet, but we are ready to apply it as soon as they become available.
Gotcha, okay. I think that's really important, I don't know. I mean, because any dollar we get for the water and sewer work then could be spent on the streetscape, you know, it's covering all our bases. Any other comments from select board members?
Just kind of, oh, I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sure. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, no, I'm always for free money. So yes, zero interest loans are amazing, obviously. But yeah, any grants that we can get, absolutely, be beneficial to knock down a $19 million. That's minimum 19 million, the way that I see that number. more realistically, it's probably 22 or even more than that, whatever other projects come up. So, yeah, anything that we can get for free is for me.
Mark?
Could I suggest that, we ask you to work with our both state and US reps and senators to figure out what's the best way to get more than our share?
Absolutely.
Because it sounds like
At least our
we're-
share.
What's that?
No, I like that.
More than our share.
I like to
That's
get more than our share,
least
but
our
yeah,
share.
at least our share, that's good. I think it's important that we do it now. And so this is kind of the discussion that we keep hearing, that at the moment, there seems to be more money than projects. And that's a situation that won't last forever. So let's get, I think the queue, as you guys are setting up, is great. I think the issue now is saying, okay, how do we grab it? So who can help us do that? I would imagine, Senator Lewis, Representatives Haggerty and Jones, and the US side, reps and senators, who are the ones who brought it up at the MMA, in fact, should be ones that we grab.
Absolutely.
Let them know what we think.
So I'm just wondering, I don't know how old the Emerson water main is, 1960s, 60 years old? So the
I have to double
town's,
check. I have it sitting in front of me, but yeah, it might be a little older than that, actually. Emerson's a little older than that.
so I understand these things were installed with monitoring systems, but the town is full of 1960 era developments. Again, to this point, is there any way we can go looking for trouble? Because the money's there to deal with it now, not really looking for trouble, but Emerson's not the only street from that era.
No, and to that point, we do have a water capital improvement program. So we've already identified areas that we need to fix. There's plenty of projects. We've only started not scratching the surface, but I mean, we've made a dent in some of the projects already, but there's a multitude of projects that we can go after.
Good. Sure.
We already know of some areas that we do have to go after this. So there's plenty of projects in town with the infrastructure. Sure.
There's one thing too. So at a separate date, Ryan, I'm wondering, so this is great, first of all, thank you, thanks for bringing this forward. It would be great, because of that federal and state money that's out there, to think about other almost shovel-ready projects that exist that aren't just water and sewer, but they're infrastructure. They're public works oriented kinds of things. I think there was a discussion of, I don't know if I'm remembering it right, but kind of not Walker's Brook, but the intersection of where all the construction is, Main Street and, what's the street I'm thinking of? That is Walker's Brook, isn't it? Whatever the intersection is. Washington, thank you. To think about that, if there are any other shovel-ready or close to shovel-ready projects. The point being simply that if we can get in line and maybe capture more of these funds, that opens up the capital plan for lots of other things. So maybe at another meeting, if you wouldn't mind taking a look, other infrastructure projects, non-water sewer, would be great. Or not just water sewer.
Absolutely, and Fidel did touch upon one that's coming down the pike, which would be the Haven Streetscape, and planning and engineering are also working on. I think you've seen that whole Eastern Gateway type project.
That's
That
what I
might
was
be
thinking
something
of.
that comes down the pike
Yep.
for MassWorks or something along those lines. And then that sort of brings into that piece that Walker's Brook Drive into Washington Street area that I think you've all have seen that presentation at some point.
Yep.
Where we know we have a need for some surface improvements. And I've spoken with Fidel about, a few other federal grants that are available for some of those surface improvements. Generally speaking, they're more surface improvements than they are more infrastructure improvements.
If the select board is talking with RMLD about economic development down on Ash Street, is that part of the Eastern Gateway? Like, is that an area that we should be looking, are there vulnerabilities? Is it up to standards if we redevelop that area? Or are we gonna have water and sewer capacity to maintain it, to support it?
Depending on what goes in that area, I mean, we haven't specifically looked at that area as far as knowing what would go there, modeling it and knowing if just housing would go there, what type of development, what type of use. Those would be things that we would want to know, and it's easy enough for us to model because we have our model. So we can apply those usages or assumed usages. and develop and see if there's anything that needs to be upgraded because we have capacity issues. Nothing stood out through this modeling that showed us that. But again, that Eastern Gateway, that project, it's still in its infancy. It's definitely getting more momentum, and hopefully there's more funding out there available to push it forward. And we can certainly look at that in the future to see what we need to do. We would want to do that.
Yeah, I think those kind of projects are what these programs are looking for, like a infrastructure that is going to fund development, right? That is going to fund growth. It's going to fund. So yeah, I think that we're talking. I mean, for the last 2 weeks, we've been talking almost daily about this. It's I know that it's really important for the board, and we're going to keep pushing for it.
Sure.
Last meeting, so 2 weeks ago, we talked about Walker's Brook and just the few hundred feet extra that was desired. I think we came up with like $1 million total for the cost. I'm assuming that 400 of that is this Walker's Brook Drive main replacement. And so that's question one. And I guess question two is, what's the other kind of 600K and back to this, sorry, seemed to in this rut. Can we go chase that real fast too? And or I take your point on ARPA. I think we need to have a discussion about that as well.
What you see for Walker's Brook Drive is probably the more critical piece that just needs to get done now. I think we'd be okay if we deferred that other section, at least based on what the water and sewer supervisor has told us. That's more isolated, so if we do have any breaks, it's not going to impact any of the development that's in that area now, any of the commercial use. This piece here sits sort of right in the middle from New Crossing Road sort of down to, I believe just near the other entrance. So it's about 600 feet or so. And that's a critical piece because if that goes down, it's not as bad as the first piece because we've made some changes and modifications to isolate. But if that goes down, this still does feed some of those commercial areas. So knowing that we're trying to reduce and prioritize some of these things, that's why you're seeing that 400,000 in there. And again, just to point out, we are still looking at whether or not some of these water main improvements and sewer improvements would fall into that mass work grant piece. So, and if that affects whether or not we can apply in the future for, say, the streetscape. So we want to just make sure that we're getting our full benefit, right? So we're looking into that now, and that is shovel ready. This will be going out to bid soon. That's considered shovel ready.
And I just want to echo Mark's point. I don't want to spend our one-time ARPA monies purely on water and sewer. I know this is a huge budget, and I also know that it has been hammered home that there is money at the state to fund this stuff. So the ARPA bucket is not labeled water and sewer. It's not. I think the community is going to express their concerns, and it's not going to be, just spend it all on water and sewer. I will stop belaboring the point. That poor horse is dead. Any other comments, Carl?
Thanks. Ryan, this is gonna be the 4th station out of 7, correct? The pump station?
4th out of 12.
12, all right. And so 4 minus 12 is 8. Do you have a timeline for the other 8 or what the condition is and what's next?
Yeah, we do. The next station after Sturgis has been pushed off in the capital. We've pushed it off a few years actually. What we're going to do after Sturgis, and we're in the process of doing it now, is because the last assessment was done in 2010, it's ready for be looked at again. The failures aren't going to go away from 2010, or the assessment's not going to get better from 2010. Things usually get worse, but the priority may change as far as what is a new priority, and is the next station that was in line on the capital plan really in line now, or did something else fail worse? So we always shift. We're always looking at these capital plans. We're always reassessing them the best that we can to make sure that we're really prioritizing what needs to happen. And we're making sure that we're also minimizing that maintenance, operations and maintenance costs as well. So to answer your question, I don't think we're on a as critical path as we were on the first 4. I think the next 8 is a slower path because they're not as critical as these first 4 were.
And that 2.25 million, I know that's today's money. That's if we did them all in a year, would that be the cost?
Of the remaining 8?
Yeah, per pump station.
No, Charles Street, Sturgis Pump Station, those are the 2 workhorses. They take the largest areas in town for sewer. So because they do that, they have 3 pumps, they work all the time. You know, one thing I do want to point out is some other ways that we try to limit costs on these, as well as this sewer pump station is going from standard pumps down to variable frequency drive pipes, which is a huge energy saving. So we'll start to see that in the operations and maintenance costs back. So that's another huge improvement there. And we're making all these improvements as we're going through to the system. So they're long-term benefits, but there are benefits that are coming out of that. But to answer your question, I don't think we're going to have pump stations that are going to amount to this much in the future. These are really big. These are deep,
Okay.
really heavy hitters. Yeah.
And that 7 million you mentioned for, I'm just gonna call it end of Haven Street, correct? It seems really high. What are we doing down there besides streetscapes and?
So we haven't done anything with that. We had some money available, so we tasked Beta Group, who did our downtown design, to look at the Haven streetscape and come up with a conceptual plan. So what we've done is we've spent some money up front where we've done our survey, which is not money lost. That money is well spent. That survey will never go away. We've done analysis on our traffic signals, analysis on the traffic down there, and so they put together a conceptual plan. What needs to happen from that point is a big public involvement portion. So all the stakeholders getting involved. There's public feedback. There's multiple meetings. We take that from a conceptual plan and we bring it to, say, a 75% plan or 100% plan, depending on where the town really wants to put that. And they put a cost on that. Again, there's a range when you're doing downtown improvements like that, and it all depends on how much you do in the effects of amenities, what you want those to look like. You want to do any landscape architecture and really enhance the area. And as you go down, those costs add up. Or you can just repave it and restripe it, and that price comes way down. So that 7 million is on the top end, just to keep in mind that it has not gone in front of any public involvement, any stakeholder input. But that's the next phase that needs to be funded for design, so we can bring that forward. So when we're ready, that's the next point that we have to go forward with.
Okay, thanks.
We are a few years away from that, as you can tell. We have probably about 2 years of construction in the downtown.
Thank you. This is great. I appreciate this update.
Great.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Does anyone want to see the maps? You guys fine?
I think we saw the numbers. I mean, the maps are gonna look pretty colorful in contrast.
That's why I put it right up front for everyone, so you can get right to it.
And having
So
it
if
in
you're
practice
fine,
is great.
I'll stop sharing.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you,
thanks.
Ryan.
Yeah, including them in the packet was very helpful too, to be able to see it.
You know, one thing I do want to mention, I think it's important for the board and anyone watching, just to know that we are experiencing the supply chain delays, particularly with the sewer pump station. The price hasn't changed on that at all. We don't expect it to, but there is a major delay. That was awarded in October of 2021. we're not probably going to break ground on that until October 2022 because the availability of pumps, different types of fittings, and the generator. It's just we can't source it at this point. So I just want to put that in everyone's mind, and we're also seeing a delay in ductile iron pipe and potential increase in ductile iron pipe by 50% potentially by April. So it's important to keep that in mind with the climate that we're in right now. Okay?
Thank you. Yep,
You're welcome.
awesome news. Okay, next on our agenda, discuss and approve temporary lights at Coolidge. There's information, oh, sorry, excuse me, got ahead of myself. Approve Longhorn change of officer. There's quite an extensive background, in our packet. Bill, I don't know if you wanna address this at all.
Actually,
Oh,
we have someone before the board.
okay,
Hi,
great.
it's my first time here, but you want me
You can stand right here, the owl will hear you.
Okay. My name's Elizabeth Pisano from Upton, Connell, and Devlin, counsel for the Longhorn. This is just an officer change, and what we have is Lindsay Corrins replacing Joseph Kern, and Angela Simmons is replacing William White as director, president, and treasurer. There are no operational changes to the restaurant, and it is just this officer change.
Read the list of violations, I didn't see any that said Reading, that was good.
Yeah, and one of the things that's important to us is making sure that there aren't violations. And as Karen just mentioned, you know, I didn't see very many at all, which is great.
Good.
So we encourage you to keep that up,
Okay.
particularly in Reading.
I will let them know. They're doing good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
I think we're good, thank you,
Okay,
appreciate
thank
you
you.
coming this evening.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, so would you like a motion?
Love a motion.
Let's try. Move to approve the change of officer request for Longhorn Steakhouse.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? None appearing, all those in favor? 5-0. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, now we can talk about temporary lights at Coolidge.
Jack is gonna be my navigator. He's gonna pull up the PowerPoint for me. So thanks for having us tonight. For anybody out there who doesn't know me, I'm Jenna Fiorenti. I'm the recreation administrator for the town. This presentation was made in collaboration with Reading United Soccer Club and also the Reading Lacrosse organization. And Chuck's actually here in person in the back. Chuck Arbely, he's the director for lacrosse right now. So him, myself, and Mike Sheedy really tried to do a lot of background homework on what we can do with the stadium turf being down this season. So we hope we came up with a good plan that will satisfy all the youth sports organizations as well as the neighborhood and the school itself. So next slide, Jackie. Thank you. I don't like bossing people around. So as you all probably know, stadium turf will be under construction starting on April 15th. The organizations will be losing over 20 hours of turf time each week. More than half of those hours are practice hours under the lights on stadium turf on the weekdays. The portable light poles have been approved and used in the past to accommodate more field space. It's been several years since we have used them because we really only like to use them during an extenuating circumstance, which we would consider this to be one. So next slide. The plan is to place 4 portable light poles at Coolidge from April 15th to June 15th, which is the approximate length of the spring season, give or take championship Saturdays and some playoff time. But these lights are only going to be used, as you can see, until 9 p.m. and for practices only. So we paid special attention to that. Games could be played underneath these lights. The organizations could play games, but we decided collectively to use them for practices only because we wanted to be respectful of the neighbors again. So the neighbors don't have to worry about whistles blowing, They won't have to worry about large crowds and games down there. There'll probably be maximum 2 teams down at a time, utilizing the portable lights for the practices. The lights will be locked with a combo lock and will be given to the league directors to turn off and on like we've done in the past. The cost of the lights will be split between recreation, soccer, and lacrosse, because we consider this a collaborative effort. As you can see, this is my little dots where the portable lights would be. I'll just walk over really quick. So if you see where the dots are, the end of the field is approximately right here and right here. So the lights are placed about 25 yards from the end of each end of the field. So we also plan that out specifically to stay as far away as possible from the tree lines, to respect wildlife, and again, to respect the neighbors. We talked about putting 8 poles down there at one point, and we're like, we just want to use these for practices, get these kids playing. They've had a tough go of it, so we really tried to compromise and think about the best plan down there. Next slide. Neighborhood feedback. We sent abutters within a 150 feet radius of the Coolidge property line a letter to inform them of the project and invite them to the Recreation Committee meeting, which was held in February. We received positive support emails, and those are present in the packet. Some of them were abutters, others were families who had children who participate in the soccer and lacrosse organizations. A few neighbors showed up at the rec committee meeting to voice some concerns, and I just wanted to be transparent about those. So next slide. And I hope that we answered these questions in the meeting. But noise from the generators, definitely understandable. The generators have been used in the past, as I've said a couple times already. The league organizations that have used them have been Saturday Night Lights, Pop Warner Football, Reading Soccer. All of these teams have kids from K through 8th participating in their programs. Even sometimes the high schoolers were out there using the multi-purpose area. And they had indicated that it's very low impact on sound. But after that meeting, I also did go down to the vendor that we got the quote from, which is Sunbelt Rentals, to determine the noise impact, so I had peace of mind, so I could come and say, hey, I didn't really think that they were that loud. So I stood 50 feet away. I was in an open parking lot, and I didn't really hear a tremendous noise impact. With that being said, what I told the neighbors is I have no idea until they're down there and you hear them, really, but I would assume that it would be very low level, given where we're putting them on the field and the proximity away from their homes and the abundance of trees. So light shining into homes. The light poles are only 30 feet high, seemingly lower than the current tree line surrounding abutters in the neighborhood. The lights are positioned directly to shine on the field, and we can also be flexible with the location if a problem were to arise. So the light fixtures that are on these poles can also turn 360 degrees. So if it was to shine in someone's yard this way, we can easily just turn it the other way, right, Jack? Yep. And the lights only shine about 50 feet in the direction they're placed. So if we're placing them on that 25-yard line, they're only gonna go 50 feet, which is 25 feet less than where the actual end of the field is, if that makes sense to people. Setting a precedent, I completely understand this. Neighbors don't wanna see these portable lights popping up every season just because, lacrosse wants to have 700 people in their organization, or soccer wants to have 700 people, and we wanna just monopolize all the fields and not respect our neighbors. And we assured them in the meeting, I think myself and the recreation committee, first and foremost, we wanna be respectful of them, and they were guaranteed that, yeah, this is just an extenuating circumstance with stadium turf being down. And what if the lights are kept on? Another great question, which I didn't touch on that in the meeting, but after the meeting, the directors of the leagues reached out and said that they would be more than willing to offer their personal cell phone numbers. So if a neighbor did want that, they could reach out to me directly and I can share that number with them. And if they notice that the lights are on past that 9 p.m. point, a league director will go out there themselves and shut off the lights. And if they're unable to do so, you know that you can call me, Chuck, or Mike, And I'll be more than happy to go down there. And my program coordinator also lives right across the street in the Birch Meadow area, so she can too. Next slide. So other internal communication, obviously we need help from our DPW as in the past. Mike Hannaford has said that him and his team, Billy Fuller and the crew, will be willing to refuel them if possible. Refueling, we might not even need to do. These lights, these generators can last 80 to 100 hours for the time, so there is a possibility that they won't even need to be refueled. But if they do, the DPW is willing to go down there and refuel them with a gas tank. Also, Conservation, I'll just skip over facilities for a second. Conservation made a couple recommendations to us in the last meeting. Chuck Tyrone shared those with me. One of them was spill kits to place underneath the generators, which we're more than happy to accommodate with. We haven't done that in the past, but that's not a big ask, we can do that. And the other was refueling the generators closer to the parking lot, which I'm gonna talk to Jeff Cummings about as well. He was gonna help me with the spill kits, and we don't know if we can necessarily refuel them at the parking lot because they're very heavy. So the DPW actually has to take them from the parking lot and drag them on a tractor to the location. So dragging them off the field to refuel them might be a little much, but if it's a one-time thing, I'm sure we can make it happen. So essentially what I'm trying to say is we will accommodate whatever we need to do, and we will go along with anything conservation recommended, and Jeff Cummings will help me with the spill kits. I did reach out to Joe Huggins in facilities because he does work directly at all the schools, so I wanted to make sure it was okay with him. He suggested I reached out to someone at the central office for the school department, so I reached out to Susan Botan. We've been chatting quite frequently. She came in and met with me in person to just learn all about what was going on and brought her assistant. So we had a nice conversation. She said that she would relay all of this information to the principal, Sarah Marchant, and Sarah emailed me back with a couple of questions that were kind of related to this, but didn't seem to be a significant problem with this particular proposal. And Sarah also indicated that she shared it with the gym teacher and things like that. So
I think this field is usually not programmed, right?
it is. So it's already programmed during school hours, obviously, and then after school, it's used all the way until dark. And used for high school games as well.
Okay.
And I talked to the athletic director at the school, and he's okay with it too, obviously. But-
So are they just gonna relocate somewhere else? I actually thought it was used, by Coolidge sometimes, but mostly unprogrammed.
Yeah, nope, so the lights on the fields will have pretty much no impact on programming because they'll be
exists,
placed
okay.
at a part of the field where they can still play safely and things like that.
Okay, very good.
So if there's any other questions or comments, or if Chuck wants to chime in with anything, or Mike, I don't know if you're on the call from soccer.
I appreciate the 360 you did with the neighbors,
Absolutely.
conservation, I mean, really, that's wonderful. And Sarah over at Coolidge and central office, and Joe, and might as well ask all those questions.
Yeah, but we don't wanna get here and then have it be like, hey, did you talk to this person, and this person? And then we gotta get on the agenda, and these organizations are really chomping at the bit to come up with a plan for their season with the stadium being down, so.
Yeah.
We're just trying to work as a team and get it done, so.
And then that stream is back there too, so you answered my question about, is that conservation related?
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
It really
Yeah.
seems like you've done your due diligence and really appreciate the work you've done leading up to today and the presentation tonight, so thank you.
Appreciate that.
Jenna, how much is the total cost of the three, the rec and the soccer and
Yep,
lacrosse?
so it's a little over $5,000. So split between us three, very, very minimal. We did actually look into, I also wanted to mention all those other options, like no glare or minimal glare lights, solar lights we also looked into, but they were significantly more expensive, so. We did explore other options too. Yeah, it was like 15,000, 16,000 or something like that, yeah.
I can't remember, did the presentation say when you thought the end date with the need for the lights would be?
Yep, so it's proposed April 15th to June 15th.
Oh, okay, so it's 2 months, okay, great, good, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Chris?
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, just real quick, to reiterate in my email as Director Butter over there, for me, just the high school being there as well with football games and all that stuff that you can hear from Pluto when they're going on, this seems very minimal, especially compared to that. So yeah, I really don't have any problem with it. It's only temporary, and I don't see you guys just wanting to blow $5,000 every single year, so.
Ready for a motion?
Yes, we need a motion, thank you.
Thank you.
Move to approve the placement of temporary lights at Coolidge as proposed.
Second.
Thank you, Carlo. Any discussion? None appearing, are we ready for a vote? Okay, all those in favor? 5-0. Good job, thank you.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
great night,
Nice
thank you
job.
for coming.
Bye. Have a good season.
Okay, okay, and it is time, it's a very exciting time when we need to close the warrant for annual town meeting, which will be in person. So you were kind enough to include the capital plan, because that is one of the items on the warrant item. The warrants, it's an article that we need to approve and put before town meeting, and we hadn't seen it in a while. Is there anything you wanna talk to us about before I open the board for questions?
Sure, I mean, so the warrant is physically here, and we'll pass it around for signatures. It's the same 19 items that were presented in our last meeting, so no changes. On the capital plan, of course, it's as part of the budget. We received an email earlier today from a resident asking for Birch Meadow and trying to explain those priorities. And I'll just say that the capital plan is going to be a big priority in FY23 for me, and more making it a collaborative process as well. I met with Pat Tompkins, who does the permanent building committee, and he had some ideas about incorporating a more, I guess, comprehensive view and maybe doing a public hearing in the fall about just the capital plan. So I think we're at a good time right now to look at FY23 as a way to kind of spruce things up.
I like that idea about doing a hearing on the capital. That's great. Let's focus on that.
Any other board comments? Mark?
So I have a few questions, Fidel. With the in-person meeting, is there a remote option that's being considered?
So we did not have the option to do both. It was either or. So it was either we go fully remote or fully in person. A hybrid option was not given by the legislature.
That's not smart on their part. Okay, next question. On Article 10, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, I know we had a brief discussion of this, and this is kind of where we are at this town meeting. How do we start a discussion on changing how we do this in the future?
Yeah, so that's something that Gina and I discussed, and it's something that there's a lot of really interesting conversation happening around town, potentially on Summer Avenue, right? I mean, where it's some ways to really get this fund moving and just get some action out of this fund. So I guess what I'm trying to say, Mr. Doctor, is just I think what's happening in the community right now is going to give us an opportunity to have a conversation about this fund.
Cool, and maybe restructuring how we do it completely. Okay, great, thank you. On Article 15, This is the smart growth and all these other pieces associated. I'd like to, so I've received a number of emails from residents expressing concerns, particularly about the parking requirement, appreciating that it's changed, but asking that it change more. And there's lots of great stuff in here, but I wonder if there's a way to encourage CPDC to kind of explain why they're not even going further before town meeting, so that we don't run into a debacle on the town meeting floor.
You know, to be fully transparent, I mean, this is something that has been in the works, I think, for a year and a half or 2 years, and CPDC has had a lot of hearings about it, and you know, we had a call with the state actually last week with the Department of Housing and Community Development, right? And in order to comply with some state regulations, we also may need to stay in those guidelines. So we definitely understand that this is going to be the biggest portion of town meeting in April. I mean, I'm fully confident that we've done our homework. Our staff and the board. I was part of the meeting with the state, and we just verified. We walked through this, and the goal was to ensure that we weren't also putting ourselves in an awkward situation, you know, with state regulation. So you know, we I think we're in a good place right now with regards to our percentage of growth in the downtown, affordable housing in the downtown. So I think it's a good opportunity to make these changes. But a lot of conversations have been had about those topics, right? I mean, and unfortunately, you know, the regulations cannot be too burdensome to restrict development, right? I mean, and it's a fine line. It's a fine line that I think we're going to try to explain at town meeting. But Jean and Julie Mercier have spent you know, probably 100 hours on this thing, and they're ready, right, to come before a town meeting, present. We've shared it with town council. We shared it with the state. But we fully acknowledge that it's going to be a probably one full night of town meeting.
Yeah. I wonder, so that sounds great. I wonder if there might be an opportunity for CPDC to get out ahead of town meeting in terms of sending information to the public, maybe even a video for people to watch, just a brief introduction, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of discussion at town meeting about it, but getting ahead of it might be really advantageous.
Great. Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, Vidal, to Mark's point, the 1.25 thing, it's, in my opinion, it's too low. I'd like to go 2. I don't know if you can go 5. That's too burdensome, like you had mentioned. But the 1.25 for a studio, I can understand. A 2-bedroom, absolutely not. I don't think it's currently working, and I don't see it working in the future. But yeah, that's the biggest thing for me in here. So
Yeah, no, I think we definitely understand. There's a few hot topic items that I think we're going to talk about. The parking is one of them. The setbacks is another one. So both Jean and Julie know that it's going to be an exciting night.
yeah, I just know people are already paying for parking in some other random person's lot kind of scenario, and you know, I would just hate to see that be compounded upon. So.
Well, so this topic has come up before, so will they be able to tell us, or tell the community where they got these guidelines from?
Absolutely.
Okay, because
Absolutely.
they didn't just make them up.
No. I mean, and there were public hearings about this. CPDC has gone through, you know, each and every word in the zoning bylaw. I mean, this is a year's worth of work. I mean, and of course, I mean, it as I was saying earlier, it's very tough to find that middle ground. But we'll definitely explain it, and you know, hopefully, town council will be there as well, and kind of share, you know, what's the impact of the community if you know, if we make any changes.
Town council is nodding over your shoulder.
She's
just so you
joined
know.
us, yeah.
Thank you.
Stop saying bad stuff about everyone. It's on the line. Any other comments on the capital plan or the warrant? Can I ask a quick question? Down under the community garden specifically, it says, so the earmark fund was 10,000, and I had been hearing that that's fine for phase one, so can you help me understand why it needs to be a partial funded item? Or are they looking, do they need additional funds? Is that what that partial item is for $930?
I'm sorry, in the budget or
It's in the
warrant?
capital plan?
Sorry, yeah.
Well, it's under additions, it's on a separate page after the capital plan, under additions.
Yeah, so that that spreadsheet, so Jackie, if you can share page 37, that'd be great. I can explain that
Okay, thanks.
page 37 of the packet, Jackie, thank you.
And it says if needed, yeah,
There you go.
okay.
So this, if you recall, Bob went through the requests of the boards, and he shared basically what was partially funded in the FY 23 budget, and essentially what he could not fit in. But so the there you go. So if you scroll down a little bit, Jackie, it's towards the bottom, I believe. Yeah, right there's a community garden. So the what he did essentially is he gave us a fund that is at the board's discretion of $15,000, right? I mean, and that could be used to fund the $10,000 request from the community garden board. It could be used to fund, you know, the some of the items from the trail committee, right? I mean, so the
You know what, let
what-
me back up, because I misread this.
Okay.
That whole column, SP member average, is throwing me off.
Sure.
That doesn't need to be there, that's, so I was misreading it, sorry, and I
Not a
pulled
problem.
it down.
no problem.
But the community, yeah, so the community garden, that was an earmark, so it's not even up for debate.
No, exactly.
Okay,
It's done.
alright,
It's
so
done.
sorry,
Not a
thank
problem.
you.
No problem.
But it suggests it could be funded by, the key says with the partial, with the
Yeah.
star, says
Yeah.
it could be funded by select board reserves. Did they have additional funding that they'd asked for?
They do. So it was the $10,000 from the earmark and another $10,000 for FY 23.
This,
Okay, cause I went back and forth with him, and I think that was a misunderstanding, but check one more
So-
time.
okay, so the community garden is looking for $10,000 on top of the earmark they
That's the understanding that I have, but it.
Yeah, no, I went and I had the
That
understanding.
makes sense, that would make sense looking at
Sure.
this, yeah.
Sure.
But I'm a drop confused now, because I thought they came in and said the
Yes.
10,000 was enough.
They did,
An earmark.
they did, I think,
I don't
yeah.
know why there'd be an additional need.
So that might be good news,
Sure.
because I think there was
And there's less,
miscommunication, yes, I
there's
think there was
less competing for the
miscommunication,
partial.
yeah, or
asterisk.
misunderstanding at our initial
Exactly, that was his
meeting,
point.
that, yes, yes.
Yeah, and on that topic, I had a coffee this morning with Kathy Seek. I mean, and she's ready to roll. DPW is going to start work on clearing the space and making the beds as soon as the ground is ready, essentially with snow and ice. And she is shooting for a grand opening, if you will, at the end of May. So we're going to invite,
Nice.
you know, the select board members and obviously the state delegation
Oh,
who was
yes, they
critical
wanna come,
in getting
yes.
this earmark.
That's great.
Okay, so I don't know how that changed the rest of that slide prior to town meeting, but we can re-verify that item. We'll re-verify it again. New town manager better like get it straight. Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
For a motion?
think we're ready for a motion.
Move to close the annual town
Karen,
meeting.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, just one comment, sorry, put my hand down.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make one note that since the warrant was circulated, Julia and Jackie, worked on Article 15. They didn't change it substantively, but they edited it so that the formatting was in line with what's currently in the zoning bylaw. And in addition, we caught a typo in Article 9.
Thank you.
So Fidel, I'm not sure which warrant you have in front of you, if the board is going to sign it tonight or if they're going to sign it tomorrow, but I just wanted to make sure that we were signing the correct version.
Thank you. No, and Jackie caught that actually, and I believe we have the latest and the greatest, right? Right, Jackie?
No, actually, Ivrea just sent the latest and greatest
Oh, gotcha.
right
It's another
for the meeting.
latest.
So, yeah, sorry about that.
So if we can sign
The board
tomorrow.
can still vote, the board can still vote to close the warrant, there's no issue with that whatsoever. It's just whether you sign it today or sign it tomorrow. But absolutely, the board can move forward and close the warrant as it normally would.
So, Ivrea, would our motion be then to approve it as amended?
Sure, or if you want, I can put it up on the screen. And you can approve the version 7. It's up to you how you want to structure it. Both motions are legally sufficient.
You guys wanna see it? I heard her say it was not substantive, which is a tough word for me to say. So I would,
Yeah, Ivrea's usually trustworthy.
Yeah, so so the only in Article 9, an and needed to have been stricken. So we just added a little strike through on the and. And then in Article 15, like I said, Julie and Jackie had just worked on editing it, but there was no
that's the big one.
substantive edits.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna make the motion as is then, if that's all right.
Okay.
Move to close the annual town meeting warrant consisting of 19 articles to take place on April 5th, 2022.
Second.
Thank you, Chris.
Do you need to say as amended?
She said no. Either way was no.
Okay. I didn't know if we needed to say either as amended or as presented on the screen.
I would take that as a friendly
Friendly amendment, okay.
So as presented on the screen,
But it's not presented on the screen.
as amended.
Presented on Ivrea's
That works.
computer.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, we have a second again, thank you. Okay, any further discussion? None appearing, all those in favor? Okay, close the warrant. Hooray.
And on time.
This is our first in-person warrant. It's amazing, it's so long. Okay, sorry, it's a really long packet, 139 pages, I just need to get back to the agenda. Okay, great. 8:30. Oh my gosh, we are kind of on time. This is great. Okay. Discuss and Ivrea, thank you for joining us. By the way, welcome. Discuss Town Charter Section 5.1, Town Manager Termination Pay. So this was raised, brought to our attention with the changing of one town manager to another by our town accountant to just make sure that the select board was aware of it. Town council has also given us an opinion as to the charter language, and she's here to answer any questions and any further explain that. And the language in the charter was put in while our first town manager was in place. I was on town meeting at the time, I remember it, and it was very helpful to have town council's explanation as to what it was for, because at the time, I know I voted against it. I think it was explained very, very differently, and I was scratching my head, but so this is the first time it has been brought up. At a prior meeting, our town accountant provided some meeting notes regarding discussions around town manager 1.0's employment contract. I also did some research in October of 2018. a previous select board amended the town manager's employment contract. And Fidel, I don't know if you had a chance to check your email. I was hoping that was in the packet, but it wasn't in the packet, but we can forward that to you. So just showing that previous select boards had updated the town manager's contract, and this information wasn't available online. It isn't available online. It's the contract just says what it is, but there was actually a salary correction in 2018 after the override. So, you know, at this point, we could go around and briefly talk about, we've had time to research it, we know what town council's opinion have, she's here for questions. We could go briefly give our opinion of whether this applies in this scenario and see where we are after that. How's that sound? All right, briefly, okay. All right, who wants to go first? Chris?
I guess I'll go first, not Mark. Thanks, Karen.
Well, he can stay to 2 minutes, I've seen him do it.
2 minutes, you're starting the timer.
2
on me?
minutes, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, like I said at the prior select board meeting, obviously this isn't required. We don't have to do anything, we can't afford anything, we can't do X, Y, Z. All those things can be said. But for me, it comes down to, very simply, the day that Bob gave us his notice back in August, which seems like, 2 years at this point. The day that he did that, he could have went ahead and just went out on sick leave, COVID, etc. The only time you're ever gonna get away with, I'm sick, whatever scenario, he could have did it right then and called it a day. Instead, by sticking around for the 6 months like he did, he is losing $124,592.29. 99% of the people watching this in this room, whatever, when you're about to retire, I own my own business, it's different for me, but employees, et cetera, like when you have 6 months to go, and you have 6 months sick time or whatever, here's my notice, have a good one. And you're taking your 6 months, you're getting paid for it, et cetera. Bob stuck around. And to me, that means something, to not leave us high and dry, I'm sure it'll put us in a better position when Fidel's gonna have questions, anyone's gonna have questions, to be like, Bob, you got nothing, these phone calls are gonna cost money. I don't know if he's gonna do it, but to me, it's just the way that Bob left it. He gave us the 6 months notice, which was required in his contract, I understand that. But the day that he did it, he lost $124,592.29. Nobody is losing that amount of money. That's it.
Chris, could you explain that? What do you mean by he's losing
Because
$139,000?
he had that much, he had 1,300 hours of sick time in the sick bag, and that all gets forfeited.
Okay, but other employees no employees get paid for sick time anymore. That policy was changed years ago. Just for the record. He didn't lose it. People don't get paid for sick time like that.
But if he had gone out on sick leave then, the day that he gave his notice, would he have not gotten paid for it?
Yeah, he could take sick time. Correct. Fine. If that's
That's-
the point you wanna
that's-
make, that's fine.
That's the-
I don't think he would have actually, I suspect that the town's policies are not such that he could have just gone out on sick time for 6 months.
Yes, it's
I doubt
more
he
of
would have been able to do
around
that.
the COVID time kind of scenario. It's one of those gray areas. But that's why, to me, he accumulated that much sick time to begin with because he was never sick. To accumulate that massive amount, I could only dream about having that kind of thing. So for me, what I would like to propose for now and for Fidel and 30 years from after
Okay,
Fidel
10 seconds.
is to have Bob, for any town manager to receive, as long as they give their notice required in their contract, to receive 1 month of compensation, as well as 1 week for every year that they were town manager. So in Bob's instance, he'd get his 1 month, he was town manager for 9 years, he would get 9 weeks. And that's a formula to apply to Bob and to Fidel and to 30 years from now Fidel.
Okay.
That kind of scenario is what I'd like to see.
So that doesn't really, you're getting a little bit off topic. It doesn't apply to the section of the charter we're talking about, but I noted it could be a future select board discussion.
But the figure that it would scale out to be, that's what I would go with then.
Okay.
Wanna go next?
Sure. So I would propose that we move to provide Bob with 1 month's salary. And my thinking there is that Peter Heckenbleckner was provided 3 months termination pay, and he had served for 30 years as town manager. Bob has served about a third of that time. I think it was about 9 years of termination pay. So I think it would be proportionate. The reason I think, another reason I'm thinking the 3 months that I know Sharon had discussed as precedent would be too much in the situation is that with this recent budget, we did leave some asks of department heads as well as residents, on the cutting room floor for the budget. And so given that we're not funding fully some of our other priorities and there is no room in the existing fiscal year's budget for this, that's another reason not to go for the full 3 months. But my thinking behind the 1 month is that I do think it was incredibly beneficial for Bob to provide us with 6 months' notice, which is what provides this mechanism for us to consider making some kind of termination pay. The 6 months' notice provided us an opportunity to hire a consultant to conduct a thorough selection process, to hire Fidel, to bring him on board, for there to be some overlap and a transition period between the two town managers in a way that I think has been really beneficial to the town and to ensure a smooth transition. And 6 month notice is unusual in the town manager industry. And it's been really beneficial to the community, and I would like to provide this kind of incentive to Fidel, future town managers, that, providing this kind of notice and the benefit that it provides to the community will be incentivized.
All right.
So, a couple of points. I think that, we have a lot of employees who do extraordinary work in town. And I think it's important that, number one, we acknowledge that they do that great work. And number two, kind of deal with folks in a very equitable manner in terms of what's going on. I think that, Bob is a quality individual. He's a resident and he cares. He did a good job as town manager. He was paid appropriately for that work. He was paid at a market rate without any provisions or discussions of a termination bonus or anything on top of that. So I'm having a little trouble thinking this one through because this was what was supposed to happen and it happened. So I think that's all as it should be. I don't think that people at this level behave poorly in terms of trying to take advantage of things. In Bob's case, particularly because he's a taxpayer too. So I think that there are a lot of folks in town, as I mentioned, who kind of are meritorious. I'm having trouble having one person get paid for it and others not. So my feeling on this is that although I appreciate there's a termination pay option, we appreciate the work that was done, but I would not offer a termination payment.
Okay, Carlo?
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to echo what Ann said and to use that to advocate for more than a month for the reasons that Ann stated. I'm not going to restate them. And obviously Bob wouldn't have been here this long if he wasn't exemplary, if he wasn't one of the best town managers in the state. So I don't like the word termination pay. I mean, that's just, it's in there, but that's not the way I look at it. He wasn't terminated. So whether it's severance, and to go to your point, Mark, about other town employees and the hours they put in, and they're compensated well, but Bob was a leader of this town and led us through COVID and went above and beyond anyone else. So for that reason alone, never mind many other reasons that Ann stated, I would go for a minimum of 3 months. minimum. And not because of precedent, but I think it's just the right thing to do. We wanna send a message. Fidel's already here. He has a contract. He may be here 3 years, he may be here 12 years, he may be here 20 years. We wish that to happen if all goes well, but I don't think 1 month is enough. I think 0 is a disgrace to Bob and the message that we're sending. So I am gonna support 3 months.
Alright, thank you. Maria, would you mind, thank you for joining us, for the benefit of folks at home, would you sort of give us a synopsis of why, and thank you for clarifying it for us, why was that section of the charter added? What purpose does it have? Or what purpose could it have?
So I can't speculate. I wasn't around at the time that this charter provision was included. All I can say is that as reflected in the charter, the select board has the ability to provide the town manager with up to 12 months salary. It's a discretionary provision, and it's triggered upon giving 6 months notice. I wasn't around at the time that the provision was incorporated into the charter. That's all I can really say at this time. It's a policy decision for this body, for the select board to make.
Understood, and it is labeled termination pay, it is not labeled bonus pay, it's not labeled retirement pay, it is labeled termination pay?
Correct, so the provision reads that upon the termination of the town manager's appointment, whether voluntary or otherwise, he may receive termination pay as determined by the Board of Selectmen, Select Board, not to exceed 12 months salary in total. To be eligible for the benefit upon voluntary termination, the town manager shall provide the Board of Selectmen, Select Board, a minimum of 60 days written notice of his intent to leave. And it's not available if the town manager is terminated for cause.
Great, thank you. So I have had a number of residents call me and suggest that the charter is too vaguely worded. So if we have a charter review coming up, maybe that's an area we should look at. But I would also like to note that our previous town manager has not asked for compensation under this clause. And I don't begrudge him the pension that he will be collecting for us for all of his hard work. I don't begrudge him any of the OPEB, other employment, post-employment benefits that he'll receive from us. The fact that he can call us anytime he wants, he gets that for no extra charge. And you know, congratulations to our former town manager for already having a new job, working 2 days a week for the town of Concord. They are lucky to have him, and they will be well served. You know, that being said, I would challenge anyone in this room to give me an example, because I worked in the private sector before I started my own business. Give me an example of resigning from a job on good terms, on bad terms, where your employers have just decided to give you like 1 to 3 months or 6 months or however many months. Just thank you. We appreciate all your past work, and you know, so here's some bonus termination pay walking out the door, because it doesn't happen. And I would again say that we spent a lot of time with consultants, Community Paradigm. They are the experts. So when Sharon raised this, I did go back to Bernie, because he said, as we were discussing the current town manager contract and looking about what are the right things to put in a new town manager contract for the next 3 years, this termination pay never came up. And what he told me when I went back to reconfirm is that it is not done. It is not out there as a contractual item. So what my concern is that the request to pay him additional pay, to Ann's point, you know, for folks that can't get priorities funded, you know, that's not a good look. For us to go off script, perhaps, with this charter provision and outside of an employment contract, a binding employment contract. You know, when we get those minutes from 2018, I've been here long enough volunteering that I remember when staff had to take 0 pay increases for a year prior to the override. Things were that dire. And I also remember the town manager also committing he would do the same thing. I only recently learned because of his employment contract, he was unable to do that. So he still got a raise when other folks had 0 raise. You know, he tried to do the right thing. But town managers are paid by their employment contract. So his employment contract is what it is. So I'm glad that he's getting $39,000 of vacation pay. That is wonderful. No other employee is gonna walk out of town and get paid for sick pays. No private sector employees get paid for their sick time anymore. It's a relic from the past. So I'll stop there. And I would say that I would not be in favor of voting taxpayer dollars anymore. I begrudge him nothing. He did a great job for us. Yes.
So I just wanted to correct what I'd said earlier because I misspoke, and Ivrea words and refresh my recollection of the language of the charter provision, which it's not, the language isn't providing 6 months, it's 60 days written notice. That triggers the opportunity for the board to consider providing termination pay. Certainly, you know, I would very much want to incentivize at least 60 days notice. The 6 months was hugely beneficial for us to provide, to set up this process that has, you know, I think resulted in an excellent outcome for this community. So I just wanted to, because I misspoke, I just wanted to correct myself.
Okay. Chris?
Thanks, Karen. And to answer your question, I believe on the news every other day, some CEO from some company is getting shown the door and getting paid out millions of dollars on some absurd
It's in their
scenario.
contract, Chris. It's called an umbrella, what's it called?
But your
Parachute.
Parachute,
Golden.
thank you, Carlo. You know, golden parachute, excellent.
if you wanna use the terminology that it's in their contract, they get to do whatever, I'm just saying that they're shown the door, they're getting tens of millions of dollars, and every employee in that company underneath them are getting nothing. The same scenario as this.
It's private sector, they have an employment contract that
In
specifies
the
that.
town of Reading has the charter. It's a provision, you wanna change the charter, go
No,
right
no,
ahead
no.
and change the
You're
charter. It's in the charter.
Nope, you're going off the charter. You're going beyond what that provision says. It is termination pay. There are certain scenarios when you find yourself having an employee that you need to have a clean break from. There are certain scenarios, and this was in our advice from town council, there are certain scenarios where this could be very beneficial. You know, God hope that would never happen to us, but
This is only eligible upon voluntary termination, though. This is not eligible if the town, it
correct,
specifically says
it says not for cause, but
if is not available if the
we
town
had
manager is
we had
terminated for cause.
candidates who were, yes, and there are some times when a board and an employee don't see eye to eye anymore and they mutually have a parting of ways, or there are other reasons that you wouldn't want to get tangled. I remember Bernie telling us this was such an important decision to make. You wanna choose wisely because getting divorced from a bad hire is a very difficult thing to do. So there are situations when a select board would wanna have the flexibility to purchase an amicable parting of ways is the only way I can explain it. And it wasn't presented to town meeting correctly or that bluntly back in the day.
But that scenario doesn't make sense. Why would you wanna pay somebody extra money to leave when they could just leave anyway?
You could potentially avoid litigation.
I just think there's this provision in here, and as I explained, he lost $124,000.
Chris, he didn't, you need to stop saying that.
In my opinion, he did,
He
because he
didn't, you
couldn't.
need to stop saying that. He's not entitled to it, you can't lose
He's-
it if it's
and
not
I'm not
entitled.
saying that he should get
Chris, you're a
12 months
businessman, if
salary.
you don't sell your stocks, you don't lose any money, you don't make any money.
I would, as being a small business owner of a company, in this scenario, in whatever financial sense that I would be in, I would be giving my employee the money. not the full amount of money.
Chris, wait, okay, so tell me
If you
about
wanna
the
argue that,
times,
I'm just
tell me the
explaining
times
to you.
that you have had employees that have
I
quit,
will,
and you have paid them termination pay going out the door.
I don't think you wanna
If you're
get,
gonna make a claim
I
like
don't
that, you need
think,
to back
I
it
don't
up.
think you wanna get into the reasons why somebody decided to leave the
I'm
town.
not asking you for the reasons, I wanna tell you
I'll-
how many times you've done it and how
I
many
will
months
give
you
you,
gave that employee.
I will give you one scenario of what I did as a small business owner. My admin person, her car, she ended up, the engine ended up going in it. She couldn't afford to buy a new one, so she was underwater in her loan. So she had to, either spend $8,000 to fix a car that she's underwater in the loan, or who knows what she was gonna do. Do you know what I did?
Chris,
do you
is this
think I
a
did?
termination example, or is this just,
I'm
it
just
sounds like
saying-
you might have done a wonderful thing,
saying-
it's not a termination example.
I'm saying you have to go ahead and do the right thing. In this scenario, doing the right thing is giving him a
So
little
doing the
bit
right
extra
thing-
money.
Hang on one second. I just want it on the record, town council has noted that this is not a provision for paying bonus pay. Well, I don't wanna speak for everyone. This is not a bonus pay decision that we would make.
I'm not saying that it's a bonus. I
Okay,
never.
good, because, and, oh shoot, no, I forgot. Go ahead, Mark, sorry.
So I think we need to kind of come to something here. But maybe the biggest point here is we're not a company. We're a town government with the responsibility to talk about taxpayer money. And that is very different from a company situation. Were it specifically in the contract that we were to do something like this, the contract itself, I think that would be clear. It's not in the contract. This is a provision that's in the charter that was used once. We've only had 2 town managers.
It actually
was used
wasn't
once.
used. Peter put it in place while he was here, but the notes talk about his employment contract,
Yeah.
which nobody
And-
has.
And there was a reason to try to equalize pay or to
Right.
bring pay up to a level that many
Right.
board members felt was appropriate.
Right.
A decision was made. The decision by the board at that time was not unanimous. There were those who didn't favor any sort of payment in terms of what's going on. I think we have a responsibility to the taxpayers of the town. I think we have a responsibility to, in terms of equity, in terms of other people. There were a lot of people that came out as leaders throughout the COVID period. And I'm not disparaging anybody. In fact, I'm doing quite the opposite. I'm suggesting that there were a lot of great people who really showed their colors for the town. And that's awesome, and that's who we are as a town. But I think the way it's set up here is it's not appropriate for us to be making a termination payment. I think the structure is there as an option. It's our judgment in terms of what we do from here. My judgment is we shouldn't make that payment.
Okay, have the board heard enough about this? Cause, I mean, I think our positions are pretty clear, but we could take a poll.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to offer 1 month's salary worth of termination pay.
Could I make a friendly meet you in the middle between Carlos 3 months, your 1 month, and my wacky scenario for future precedent? We do 2 months? Are you okay with that?
No.
Carlin?
I'm sticking to 3, so, yeah, I mean, someone has to second Ann's motion before we vote, but we can always make another motion as well.
Yeah, if no one seconds my motion, then you can make another motion.
I think in my case, finishing my point where the person got the car from us, that I seeing where this is headed, I will second Ann's motion for the 1 month. And would urge others to vote in favor of the 1 month salary.
Andrea, do you have a
Can I
comment?
make a friendly, just a friendly amendment? Unless, I don't know if Sharon's there, I'm sorry, I can't see, but can we make the motion subject to availability of funds? My understanding is that town meeting's going to need to vote this as part of a budget line item. I'm not exactly sure where the money's coming from.
So I think that there's not available funds
That's my
in this
understanding.
budget. So we would my understanding is there would have to be a vote by town meeting to approve this.
As part of the FY 2023 budget, right?
February 20th.
As part of, exactly, so I think as part of Sharon is bringing a few items to town meeting and this will be a part of that.
Mhm.
And it will be
Right,
pulled from free cash if approved.
So she's already
okay,
mentioned to the select board that having two town managers on at the same time for the overlapping period requires us to go to town meeting and ask for funding of $10,000. I believe that was the number. So anything that this select board votes tonight would be on top of that, and then it needs to go to town meeting and get to have the same discussion all over again.
so I would just make the motion subject to the availability of funds, and then when the funds become available, if this motion does in fact pass, then the payment can be made.
So should I say subject to availability of funds through town meeting approval? Just knowing that I think as of right now, there is not availability of funds.
That's fine, yeah, I think it's fine to say yes, that's fine, ma'am.
Okay. And is it okay to say 1 month's salary without, yeah, that works.
Yes, that works,
Okay.
we understand what his salary was at the time, he left employment based on his contract.
Okay. So, I'll retract my previous motion and offer a new one. I move that we provide, outgoing town manager Bob Lolisher 1 month's, salary worth of termination pay subject to availability of funds to be approved by town meeting.
I don't think availability is the right word, to be honest with you.
Could I ask Avery a question then? What is, hypothetically, if this goes to town meeting and we bring it up, are they able to change the figure? Like, could they say we wanna give them 500,000 or it has to be the number that Ann comes up with right now? Do you know?
No, yes, so the select board controls whether or not Bob receives payment under this provision of the charter. If the vote says 1 month, then that's what Bob would receive. If town meeting had the desire to pay him more, it would still have to come back to the select board for a vote.
Okay.
This is your decision, the select board controls this.
I will second Ann's motion.
Sorry, to Carlo's question, which I feel like maybe is really for Ivrea, which is availability of, you wanna repeat it,
Oh.
Carlo?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we have the funds, I just don't like the word available, it's, you know,
Is
there's different
appropriation a
buckets.
better word?
Yeah, there's different buckets,
Subject to
we can,
Appropriation, yes, is
we're
that better?
not getting, we're not incurring debt.
Appropriation works. I think availability does as well. I mean, the funds are currently not available because, they haven't been included in a budget. And according to Sharon, there isn't any funds available, but appropriation is fine. I mean, my understanding though is that it's not going to be a warrant article, right? It's going to be a line item, right, Fido?
That's right, that's correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
and she's bringing a few other items with it as well.
I just don't want residents to think, if anyone's watching, that we don't have the available funds to do this. We have to appropriate it. Available means we don't have the money.
Mark?
Okay.
So I have a problem with that statement. So we actually, according to that statement, we have funds to do everything that we want to do. It's available, we have it,
Correct.
but that's not the point. The point is that it requires town meeting to put those funds, make them available, and they're not currently available.
Right, I understand that, but the way we're wording this motion is, to me, stating that we have to go find the money. We have to appropriate the money, whether it's reserves, whether it's the town manager's reserves or our new reserves or whatever the case may be. I know what you're saying, we have to budget everything, but this is a line item that a lot of people aren't gonna catch, and it's not a lot of money.
But it's an over budget request.
Correct.
Like other things.
I understand that.
So
I
the
It's
understand.
kind of like
budget is
it's available only
Yeah.
so long as it's been appropriated, is kind of the way, yeah.
No, but that's a really good point. We have a balanced budget and this motion makes it unbalanced.
We could use appropriation, that's fine. I think, I think availability is legally a permissible word to use in this case, but if it's more comfortable for the board, I think subject to appropriation at town meeting is also a fine caveat to the motion. We just need to make clear that, as of right now, the funds cannot be transferred to Bob because if this motion is approved, because they haven't been allocated, we don't have the funds, according to Sharon.
I'm fine with either word.
I'm good with either as well.
Okay, are we good?
I think so.
Okay, any further discussion? None appearing, are we ready for a vote? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Alrighty, discuss future agenda items.
I don't know if we lost Jackie. Did we
Oh,
lose you,
no.
Jackie?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Would you mind pulling up the agenda for March 22nd and just seeing what we already have in there and then see if there's anything? It's at the top of the packet of it, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I can pull up the spreadsheet since
Cool.
that's got
Even better.
the things on it.
Thank you,
So give me 2 seconds to do that.
thank you. I think we added a recall presentation for March 22nd, which I think is already in there. And there's a few items on the agenda already in there.
The request for that would be at 9 o'clock or just after.
Or 10:40
Just after.
or 10:45.
I can't speak for the other
Okay, well,
members.
you're gonna help me keep everybody on track then.
Is the report from Park simply a report? We wouldn't be voting on anything for the 22nd?
I believe that's all it is just Bernie and Liz.
Liz, okay.
coming in, yep. Is that on the screen
No,
or?
can we show it?
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, she's still recording.
With a slide deck or just a
Like I could
verbal
reach out to our
There you go.
library director.
Sorry, I was thinking.
Could you scroll down a little bit? There you go. Awesome. And we added an item for discuss process needs and priorities for land use. So we've had a few conversations with Ivrea already, obviously on the property, particularly on Simon's Way, and I think we'll be ready for an update on that one. And a big one is the update on the Newtown website. And then we added today to introduce our new director for equity and social justice.
Alright, so that item that we've been grappling with, the Trails Committee has a member who hasn't been attending, probably doesn't wanna participate, and we're having a hell of a time getting them to just call town hall and say, don't wanna participate, which forces the select board to have a hearing and throw them off the committee, which I'm not thrilled about. Trails Committee has repeatedly tried to contact them. I dropped a letter in the mail saying, please call town hall if you're not interested. Spoke to the person's ex-husband. I don't think we're getting anywhere, so unfortunately, I think we need to have a hearing so the Trails Committee can get on with their business.
I'd like to propose that we talk about creating some, I'm gonna call them buckets related to ARPA. And the reason for this is that we're gonna need to deal with water rates, we're gonna need to deal with water reserves sooner than later. And there may be a couple of other categories that come up. Ryan's was more kind of potentially to water reserves. And I think we should have a discussion about that and think about if there are priorities and categories that we have. They aren't particularly kind of typical, I mean, they're capital in terms of an expense, but they may not be necessarily something that we would do as a regular part of the capital plan. And I think we gotta have that discussion and start to see if there are things like that. So for example, we know our water reserves are low, courtesy of Walker's Brook. We also know that we can't transfer funds between sewer and water. And it may be that we decide there are some water priorities that we wanna deal with. That's an example. There are a few others like that that I think are worth kind of bucketing now. And I appreciate, we'll get the ARPA committee started in terms of some recommendations coming in, but it's to the select board to make decisions on those buckets. So I'd like to have that onto as an item to
Does
discuss.
it only have to be ARPA? I mean, I agree with you, I'm concerned about the recent billing from MWRA, the fact that our reserves are getting low. But our excess free cash is really high as well, so
So we can't touch that per se, other than a recommendation, but we can't touch it.
I'm pretty confident that if town meeting, if the recommendation goes to town meeting, that we could raise your rates, water rates 25%, or we could move X, Y dollars and have them only go up X, Y,
I see
Z
your
return. It might be a really it might be something that would have a positive response.
So do we have an agenda item for water rates?
Not yet, so the.
So we need to create that too.
Yeah, I think the idea for that is we have the option to either do it in April, or we have the option to do it in July. And I mean, and I think I have a meeting with Fred Lasky actually on Thursday, who was the director of the NWRA. I think it's something that you know, with conversations with Ryan and Jane, I think having a little bit more time about options, I think is important. Like if we were to get say $1 million from ARPA, like what's the where do we put that Band-Aid, right? I mean, to keep rates low for another year or two or however it is. So I mean I would respectfully request, you know, just a bit of time. I mean the FY23 water rates won't come into place until August essentially. So we do have a little bit of time.
So you're suggesting put it on an agenda in a placeholder for
Sure,
April
absolutely.
earliest?
Definitely.
And
Yep.
if we need to push it, we could push it.
That's a good idea. I will do that.
I would suggest that the board either at the next meeting or at a time when I am no longer among you, at least on this side of the table, to put a couple of agenda items on, one that would evaluate which earmarks you might want to ask for through the state budget process for our legislators, to ask of our legislators, and then the other is a process for how boards, commissions, and committees can request funds from the select board discretionary fund that Bob has put in place, so.
Can I suggest that the earmark one would be great to get your input on?
Sure.
Maybe that would be a good one to do in March.
Sure.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
We don't have a process to do that. We did it last year, it was wildly successful. Like, I think we should build on that. And the timing's right, we've already been asked.
Yes, yeah,
But we don't have a
Senator
process.
Lewis has already reached out to us, so.
Great. We'll add that.
Thank you.
Motion, second.
Maybe not for the next agenda, obviously, but is there anything stopping us from using that building at the RMLD site? You said it's open, it's to do exhibits, what's preventing us from using that building?
So if you can hold that thought, they will want, it's not gonna happen in March, I don't think, but
No, I
they do
understand.
wanna get us together so we can have exactly that discussion.
But that's our building, right?
It's under I don't wanna speak, it's under RMLB's control. I don't think we just move in there and push them out.
No, not push them out,
Right.
use it.
Yeah, I don't know what, okay, I mean, we saw it,
It's not
but
a safe
I don't know if it,
location.
you know, if it locks or if it's got security doors or sprinkler system. I don't know, I mean, it's
It's like a warehouse.
it's literally a big,
There's lights.
brick warehouse.
There are lights, there are floods, there are all sorts of
Oh,
interesting
well,
things.
which building is he talking about? You talking about the office building or the
No,
antique
you mean the brick
building?
The antique building,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think they would say it's only suitable for holding things in a small area where they have it
Their
now,
file boxes in there.
as of the moment.
Yeah, I think there's some code, you know, building code and safety code.
Right, but I
things
mean,
that we gotta have.
we've been talking about that, you know, Walker's Brook 2, Eastern Gateway, all this stuff, and I know that building's been empty, but it just dawned on me recently why maybe with some, you know, small amount of funds, we can't get at least to have an art exhibit, a concert, or whatever during the day.
Yeah.
You know, and just use it to bring people outside of Reading and in Reading to the town. I mean, it's a beautiful looking building.
So we are still trying to get together with the RMLD board and Colleen, and I would think that would be very appropriate, a specific, like, could we do something in the short term as also the long term?
Because long term's a long ways away, right?
Yeah, well, maybe, that's not a bad idea.
Great.
See what the lawyers say and the insurance people. Chris.
May I ask, so discussing email policy for volunteer board committee, is that what I had mentioned last
It
time?
is.
Oh, okay,
It
I
is,
thought
yeah.
maybe there was some other
No, I mean,
policy I didn't know
and
about.
we have a few ideas, we put it for this meeting, because we see it as appropriate as tied into the new website.
Okay, and then the park thing, I think the 30 to 60 is very reasonable. I wouldn't anticipate it to be 15 minutes or something, and definitely, because they
Is
didn't
your chair
present
gonna
as much.
present?
Bernie and Liz will.
I'm just gonna make a funny that apparently we should stick with 30.
Yes.
Bernie, we stick with 30. No, just-
I could speak if you want to, we can make it 45.
Oh, we're definitely gonna stick with 30 then.
So Chris, I'm assuming that's gonna assume there'll be questions and discussion to follow
Oh,
also?
yeah. It's gonna be everything,
Okay.
I don't wanna get into
Probably a bigger
deliberation,
discussion
but
than
yes,
30.
you
Yeah.
can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, and we had a conversation of where do you go from there? Like, is it a public hearing? Is it, so it won't be the last time that it's on the agenda, the recommendations.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's
so
gonna be a subsequent, like I mentioned, that's why there's gonna be another park meeting after this one, after we have this. And then we'll come back to the select board with the final, here you go. So,
One small thing. I know it's not under our purview or Mark's and I purview, but is there, I don't know if you've been aware that someone is not attending or doesn't really attend FinCom meetings? Has that been brought?
I did actually, since we were gonna have this hearing, I did put a call into the chair of the finance committee, and he did reach out to that member. And that member hasn't been attending meetings, but that member said that he or she was gonna attend meetings in March, so let's look for that member, but otherwise, yeah, probably need to bring it up again.
Okay.
Does that fall under our purview because it's?
That's why I said that.
Looks like
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not.
It's Alan, right now it's
It has its own
Karen,
appointment.
Alan,
It has its
and
own
what was the
appointment
chair?
committee.
Is it
Russ.
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
fools, town meeting?
Yes, yeah.
I know it's been a problem, but I don't know why. Personal health, I don't know why.
I'd have to go look again, I thought that it was the same process for removal for all committees, but because it's a FinCom, it's worth a second look.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
And there's an open spot, too, we only have 8, correct? Currently? Do we have the full 9?
I think we have the.
Just the
Nine
votes are
minutes.
8 because no,
Correct.
then, okay.
Correct. Great,
Minutes?
approved meeting minutes, excellent. So February 1st, we had already discussed, and Jackie just put all the minutes in there.
Yeah, we had one item from the minutes of February 1st, we ran it by Ivrea. I think we verified it and we shared it with the board, so we feel confident that we're on the up and up.
Okay. Great, awesome.
And on the meetings for the 15th, Jackie, I think you received a few additions.
Kudos to Ann and Mark for getting their edits in early, and shame on me for getting it in late. Kudos to you two. Jackie had time to incorporate them and get them back to us. I'm gonna try harder to be like you two. I did just have one little edit, so unless you guys had edits that you didn't send in either, shouldn't take too long. Oh yeah, this was the economic development meeting related to RMLD.
So this is the
So we
second.
wanted that, sorry, you wanted that in the future agendas portion, because this is in the liaisons portion.
So I'm modifying something that was there and I can't remember where it was.
I'm sorry, which date is this one?
The 15th.
Okay.
It's the 15th,
Yeah.
okay.
Hold on, let me see.
Yeah, that was my question, this is the second.
I think it was future agenda items, but I don't remember, I'm
That
just,
sounds right.
okay, I think it's fine to put it under future agenda items.
Is it this right here?
Yes.
Oh, yes, so yes, my change should be
Okay.
instead of that. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Okay, no problem. Sorry about that, I was a little confused.
I was gonna say, I've never heard of a lunch and learn before.
It's cute. Oh, yeah, we could do a lunch and learn sometimes. Let's see if we can get Fidel to buy us lunch.
You used to do brown bags in college?
Yeah, oh, we're gonna have to do brown bag, huh?
bags?
Okay,
Brown bag
yep, we
lunch.
can do a brown bag
Do we
lunch.
get candy at all?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Get some chocolate
No.
donations into that brown bag.
Don't do lunch and learns at your place of business? Well, you might wanna try it.
I spend a permanent amount of time at Fat Larry's and the Green Tomato, so I'm not doing anything special other than,
Jackie, would you mind just kind of scrolling back and just pointing to which other edits there were?
Sure. I can do this the easy way.
Thank you.
No, sorry, I've got, let me get my Zoom controls out of the way, sorry.
Longer term, okay.
I goof right here, those are just extra spaces I'll remove. Those are my marks edits.
That's fine. By me.
So this was just asking for the clarification that the site plan had specific hours of operation for Meadowbrook that were
Right.
consistent with town policies, not state law, which would have allowed it potentially till 2 AM,
Right,
which we don't do.
right.
Did you move on?
Good, thank you. That one looks familiar. I'm okay with it.
That one is excellent.
All right, are those the last ones?
Yeah, cause that's feature agenda items, so let's wait on the bottom.
Okay.
Great.
Yes.
Motion
So-
to approve 2 sets of minutes.
Yeah, move to approve meeting minutes for February 1, 2022 and February 15, 2022 as amended.
Second.
Thank you, Anne. Any discussion?
I will once again reiterate that, thank you, Karen. I will once again reiterate that I wholeheartedly disagree with changing the minutes because of some law technicality, et cetera. I believe that whatever is said should be put there the way that it is. And having said that, it's been corrected, but I still think things should be in the way that it was said at the time to accurately reflect what was done.
I agree with that. I assumed based on staff's review and town council's input that in fact is reflected in these edits that town council has recently recommended, that it is reflective of both the accuracy of what was said as well as what's in the charter.
The legality, that's correct.
But yes, I'm good.
Okay. Are we ready for a vote? All those in favor of approving 2 sets of meeting minutes, please use your hands. 5-0. Congratulations. Okay. Just one item left. We have to kick Bob out.
So, ready for a motion?
Yes, I'm ready for a motion.
Move that the board go into executive session, including staff members Fidel Maltez and Jackie Laverde, Town Council Ivrea Freed, Special Counsel Alexandra Gill, and Maya Representative Louise Saunders, under Purpose 3, to discuss litigation strategy with respect to Toussaint versus Reading. And further, the chair declares that an open meeting could have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the body, and that the board will not reconvene in open session.
Second. All those in favor? Any discussion? All those in favor?
I think we have to do a roll call vote. 'cause it's to
Okay,
go into-
Anne,
Yes.
Carlo,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Karen, yes. Okay, thank you.
See you guys.
See you
Good luck.
soon.
Good night.
Thanks, Bob.
Bob, it's
Thanks,
only
Bob.
9:25.
I know, it's pretty.